What's happening, everybody? John Hendrix here, coming at you with another episode of The Drive, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook here on Boot Crew Media. Well, the Senior Bowl game is officially on Saturday today, and then obviously you've got the whole week to look at a lot of good college prospects, a lot of buzz from them. But obviously for the Saints, it's been a very busy week. It started obviously with the Sean Payton getting traded to the Broncos, and he signed a 5-year contract with them, and the Saints got back compensation. But obviously, that's not the only buzz that has come from Mobile for the week. And obviously, we want to talk about the elephant in the room that Derek Carr has been heavily linked to New Orleans. And look, it was reported by ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. It's been obviously picked up a good bit as far as the news and such, because Derek Carr is not returning to the Raiders for 2023. So, what to make of that? And is this an area where the Saints should bite, and what to think? So, first of all, quarterback spot is something that they got to get right, right? That's first and foremost. Jameis Winston is not going to be on this team next year. I would never see a scenario where that happened, just because of the way things went down last season. Obviously, the only other quarterback that's on the roster is Jake Luton. He's a practice squad guy for now. And then you look at, Andy Dalton is a free agent, somebody you could bring back and such. And so I think with Derek Carr, obviously the familiarity's there because Dennis Allen trusted in him in his final season with the Raiders as head coach, turned to the rookie back then. And so, look, I think that's one of the reasons why this kind of makes sense, is that he believes in Derek Carr, and that could potentially be a good pairing for Allen and the Saints, and Carr's 31 right now. And so I think the thing is, what would the compensation be like, right? I think that's the biggest thing, because I wouldn't give up. I think at the high point, especially after acquiring a first-round pick, and I get it, it's 29 or 30 technically. I don't see a scenario where you trade that away right now. But, look, for a guy like Derek Carr, maybe it's a late day 2 pick, like a third rounder. Maybe it's something that you package a little bit and it's something like that. But, look, here's what I'll say. New Orleans is in the market for a quarterback. They're going to need a quarterback. Whether that remains to be Carr or somebody else, that remains to be seen. I think at this point, you're looking at the season, or just the new league season, starting in mid-March, the March 13th. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's where you're looking at the new season starting. So there's going to be a lot of player movement. And the thing is, does New Orleans sit put and wait for Carr to potentially become a free agent, or do they try to be aggressive and trade for him? I think it's more to it than just this is the guy that the Saints have zeroed in. Think back to last offseason. This team was heavy in on Deshaun Watson. They were very much in the conversation. Obviously, it didn't pan out, and that's probably for the best, obviously. But I think they're going to have an aggressive approach here, and I think they can slice the quarterback spot in a couple of different ways. And obviously, I think a guy like Carr is somebody that you want to be a little bit interested in. Aaron Rodgers, do you take a flyer on him for maybe a year or two? Given what we saw in Green Bay last year, is it Rodgers or is it the offensive scheme? That's something to keep an eye on. And then obviously there's Lamar Jackson. I think that, he's going to reach a point with Baltimore that forces their hand. They're going to either have to trade him or, shell out a whole bunch of money that they may not want to, just because of the franchise tag situation there. I would think if there was a scenario where you would say, we'll give you that first round pick for somebody like a Lamar Jackson, I think you have to do that. You have to go all in. But, I think one of the other things that I really think about is there a scenario where the Saints would draft a quarterback here? And again, hear me out, draft a quarterback, potentially get a first round pick under a 5-year, 5th-year option. So basically have your quarterback for 5 years. Bring in a guy like Andy Dalton again, or even like a Teddy Bridgewater, somebody like that, a veteran in that class that can potentially start for you if you took somebody like a Hendon Hooker, and then be able to give this guy kind of the future reins and such. Because, could you imagine if this team was able to get a quarterback? By the way, I found it very interesting that Jeff Ireland talked to us this week. He says he likes the dual threat quarterback. So you kind of read some of these tea leaves, and maybe that's something that transpires, maybe not. But I thought it was very interesting for Jeff Ireland to kind of point that out in his interview with us on Wednesday. But, if they could get a quarterback solution, I think this is kind of where the league is gone. You don't want to end up with a Zach Wilson or something along that lines, but they're going to do their due diligence, and I think this is the most important part for them to figure out, because you just got so many talented weapons. Now you are going to have to backfill them. You're going to have to figure out what's going to happen with AK and his legal situation. You're going to have to deal with Michael Thomas's and see if you can offload him, or if it's going to just be a post June 1st cut for him. You got rising stars like Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. You got to get back to Jawan Johnson. He's a restricted free agent. You got some holes you have to deal with offensively. And so, but now you lost some assistant coaches and you lost your two co-defensive coordinators. So there's a lot of things to backfill on the defensive side too. So New Orleans is in a pretty desperate spot right now. I think this is something that we got to obviously keep more, tuned to and see how it unfolds. But look, X player being on certain players' radars is going to happen all year. I mean, do I need to bring up Jadeveon Clowney as one? Other guys that have been on the radar, and look, just because the team's interested doesn't mean they're going to land them. But with the Derek Carr buzz, I think it's something that they'll track down to kind of see where Las Vegas is at as far as what do you want for compensation, or they can stay put, play the waiting game, and then take a chance at free agency if they are wanting to potentially sign him, because other teams like Carolina are going to need a quarterback. There's going to be other teams out there that want to have a quarterback. And I don't think the Saints are going to get any of the top 3 guys this year, but if they can get in a space where they could trade that first round to move up and get one of those guys like a Stroud or a Young, I think you have to do it. And I would be pretty excited about it. But Derek Carr buzz to the Saints, it makes sense for a lot of reasons, because Dennis Allen's ties to the Raiders back in the day with him having Carr as their quarterback. And so, again, it's buzz. You're going to hear a lot of it going into the new league season. We'll have to see how things playing out. But New Orleans is in a much better spot because they did acquire a first-round pick for getting Sean Payton, and obviously having a second next year is big too. We'll just see. And as always, stay tuned to Boot Crew Media for the latest and greatest. Again, thanks to DraftKings Sportsbook for producing today's show. Don't forget to use that code BOOT to your chance to get some free money. Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend. Super Bowl is coming soon. Hopefully the Pels can rebound too, because that's been a train wreck. Be sure you check out all the videos related to the Pelicans on here too.